What does an orange-colored sign indicate? A. The start of a no-passing zone. B. A railroad crossing is ahead. C. A school zone is ahead. D. The presence of construction work. D. The presence of construction work. Construction, maintenance, and emergency operations signs are generally orange with black symbols. This sign means A. One-way traffic. B. Two-way left turn. C. Two-way traffic. D. Minimum speed limit. A. One-way traffic. Regulation signs regulate traffic speed and movement, displaying rules which drivers must obey. This sign tells drivers the direction in which they must drive when turning onto a one-way street. This sign is a warning that you are approaching A. An intersection. B. A crosswalk. C. A railroad crossing. D. A blasting zone. C. A railroad crossing. This sign indicates that you are approaching a railroad crossing. When approaching a traffic signal displaying a flashing yellow arrow, drivers A. should merge into a lane in the direction of the arrow. B. should come to a complete stop. C. may turn left after yielding to oncoming traffic and pedestrians. D. have the right of way and may expect oncoming traffic to stop for them. C. may turn left after yielding to oncoming traffic and pedestrians. A flashing yellow arrow indicates that left turns are allowed in the direction of the arrow. However, the oncoming traffic has a green light and you must yield to oncoming traffic and pedestrians.
Want to ace your DMV test? Click on the link below and get your guaranteed cheat sheet.
A solid white line on the right edge of the highway slants in to the left. That shows that A. there is an intersection just ahead. B. you are approaching a construction area. C. you will be required to turn left just ahead. D. the road will get narrower. D. the road will get narrower. A solid line along the side of the road indicates where its edge is, marking the boundary between the travel lane and the shoulder. If the edge line angles toward the center of the road, this means that the road is narrower ahead. When merging onto a freeway, it is usually best to A. proceed slowly while waiting for an opening. B. accelerate to a speed that is faster than the speed of traffic. C. turn on your hazard lights until safely on the freeway. D. accelerate to the speed of freeway traffic. D. accelerate to the speed of freeway traffic. When entering a freeway, use the on-ramp to accelerate to the speed of freeway traffic so you can blend in smoothly and safely. Entering traffic must yield to traffic already on the freeway. When approached by an emergency vehicle that is using its siren and/or flashing lights, a driver must immediately A. pull to the right and stop. B. pull to the right and slow down. C. pull to the right and turn on their vehicle's four-way flashers. D. stop and let the emergency vehicle pass. A. pull to the right and stop. When you are approached by an emergency vehicle that is using its lights, sirens, and/or other warning devices, you must immediately drive to the right side of the road and stop. To avoid collisions with vehicles in your blind spots, you should A. Quickly turn your head to see if your blind spot is clear before changing lanes. B. Adjust your rearview mirrors every few minutes. C. Honk your horn right before turning or changing lanes. D. None of the above. A. Quickly turn your head to see if your blind spot is clear before changing lanes. Before turning or changing lanes, turn your head and glance over your shoulder in the direction of your move to see if your blind spot is clear. Never rely on your mirrors alone. When you see this sign, you must A. Stop completely and check for pedestrians and cross traffic. B. Slow down without coming to a complete stop. C. Stop completely and wait for a green light. D. Slow down and check for traffic. A. Stop completely and check for pedestrians and cross traffic. Any 8-sided sign is a stop sign. At an intersection with a stop sign, you must stop completely and check for pedestrians and cross traffic in the intersection. Wait for the intersection to clear before proceeding. When approaching a railroad crossing warning sign. A. Be ready to drive faster than the train. B. Be prepared to stop if a train is nearby. C. Look for a way around any lowered gates. D. Assume no trains are nearby and continue driving normally. B. Be prepared to stop if a train is nearby. Railroad crossing warning signs are used to warn drivers of the possibility of a train. Drivers should obey all railroad crossing warning signs and never go around barriers or disregard the warning sign. When you park uphill on a street with a curb. A. Keep the front wheel straight and set the parking brake. B. Turn the front wheels away from the curb. C. Turn the front wheels toward the curb. D. Turn the back wheels into the curb. B. Turn the front wheels away from the curb. When parking on an incline where there is a curb, you should turn your wheels sharply to the left, away from the curb. This way, if your brakes fail, your vehicle will not roll into traffic. Which is a characteristic of a defensive driver? A. Anticipation. B. Passivity. C. Easily distracted. D. Anger. A. Anticipation. Defensive drivers maintain a safe following distance. Defensive drivers anticipate what may or may not happen while on the roadway, and they take action to avoid many problems. When sharing the road with a truck, it is important to remember that trucks generally A. Require longer distances to stop than smaller vehicles do. B. Require less time to pass on a downgrade than smaller vehicles do. C. Require a smaller turning radius than smaller vehicles do. D. Require less time to pass on an incline than smaller vehicles do. A. Require longer distances to stop than smaller vehicles do. Because of their size, trucks need longer distances to stop than smaller vehicles do. Another driver is trying to pass your car. You should A. Pull off the road. B. Signal to the other driver when it is safe for them to pass. C. Check for oncoming traffic and adjust your speed to allow safe passing. D. Speed up. If you are approaching a traffic signal that you notice has been solid green for a long time, you should A. Prepare for the light to turn yellow. B. Speed up to beat a red light. C. Assume the light will stay green. D. Assume the light is broken. A. Prepare for the light to turn yellow. If you see an upcoming traffic light that has been solid green for a long time, it may change to yellow or red before you reach it. You should begin slowing down and preparing for the light to change. This road sign means A. Slow down or stop. B. Stop, if necessary. C. You must come to a complete stop. D. Drive with caution and be ready to stop. Drivers should use hand-to-hand steering. A. When turning the wheel during normal driving activity. B. When avoiding a hazard at a high speed. C. When turning the wheel at low speeds. D. When backing, activating signals, turning on the radio, or activating windshield wipers. A. When turning the wheel during normal driving activity. Use hand-to-hand steering while driving normally at speeds above 15 miles per hour. Hand-to-hand steering is also commonly called push-pull steering. This sign means A. T intersection. B. Lane shifting. C. Side road. D. Do not block intersection. A. T intersection. Warning signs prepare drivers for upcoming road conditions and hazards and are usually yellow with black markings. This sign warns drivers that they are approaching a T intersection and should prepare to turn either right or left. You are involved in an accident and another person is injured. You should A. Move the injured away from the scene immediately. B. Always leave the injured where they are. C. Not move the injured unnecessarily. Keep the injured warm and administer first aid. D. Stay away from the injured. C. Not move the injured unnecessarily. Keep the injured warm and administer first aid. After an accident, do not move the injured unnecessarily. Unskilled handling can make serious injuries out of minor ones. Keep the injured warm until skilled help arrives. If there is severe bleeding, attempt to stop the flow of blood with direct pressure. You are borrowing an unfamiliar vehicle from a friend. You should A. Not put too much thought into it because all vehicles are the same. B. Hide from your friend that you are unfamiliar with the vehicle. C. Disregard any obvious defects to avoid embarrassing your friend. D. Take a few minutes before driving to familiarize yourself with the operation and location of all the vehicle's equipment. D. Take a few minutes before driving to familiarize yourself with the operation and location of all the vehicle's equipment. When driving an unfamiliar vehicle, take a few minutes before driving to familiarize yourself with the location and operation of the turn signals, hazard warning signals, headlights and beam selector, windshield wipers and washers, brakes, gear selector, and horn. Any defects should be corrected before the vehicle is driven. Emergency vehicles. A. Have the right-of-way when using sirens, horns, and/or flashing lights. B. May use a loudspeaker to give instructions. C. May follow each other. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. You must yield the right-of-way to police cars, fire engines, ambulances, or any other emergency vehicles using a siren or air horn and a red or blue flashing light. Follow any instructions given over the emergency vehicle's loudspeakers. Emergency vehicles often follow each other, so you should proceed only when you are certain the way is clear. You are approaching a railroad crossing that has no visible gates or flashing lights, but has a standard crossbuck. You should A. Approach all tracks with extreme caution and cross only when you know that there is no train coming. B. Turn your radio down to hear if there may be an approaching train. C. Only continue once cleared to do so by a flagger, if applicable. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. You must approach all railroad crossings with extreme caution and cross only when you know that no train is coming from either direction. If there is a flagger at a crossing, you must obey all of their instructions. Always signal when A. Changing lanes. B. Pulling into or out of a parking space. C. Pulling into traffic from a parking area or alley. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. Your turn signals should always be used when you make any movement to the left or right. You should use your signal when pulling into traffic from a curbside parking space, moving into a new lane, or passing another vehicle. Characteristics of drivers with road rage include: A. Deliberately obstructing other vehicles. B. Flashing headlights. C. Cutting off or swerving in front of other drivers. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. Some actions associated with road rage include deliberately obstructing other drivers, tailgating, flashing headlights, cutting off or swerving in front of other drivers, pursuing another vehicle, threatening or aggressively communicating with other drivers, and using obscene gestures. If you see these actions or others that are associated with road rage, give the driver space and do not retaliate. This sign means: A. Lane ends. B. No right turn. C. Slippery when wet. D. Two-way traffic. A. Lane ends. Warning signs prepare drivers for upcoming road conditions and hazards and are usually yellow and black. This sign tells drivers that a lane is ending and that they should prepare to allow traffic to merge safely. When encountering an aggressive driver, you should: A. Avoid eye contact, slow down, and let them pass. B. Cut them off to slow them down. C. Retaliate by tailgating them. D. Make sure they know you disapprove of their behavior. A. Avoid eye contact, slow down, and let them pass. If another driver is threatening you or intentionally driving dangerously around you, remain calm and try to put as much distance between the two of you as possible. Slow down and let them pass. Do not make eye contact and do not make obscene gestures. Road rage is: A. Merely an inconvenience. B. A criminal offense. C. An acceptable response to bad drivers. D. Annoying, but not dangerous. B. A criminal offense. Road rage is a criminal offense. If a minor traffic incident escalates into a far more serious situation, the drivers involved may face legal repercussions. This sign means: A. Watch for trucks. B. Do not pass trucks. C. Truck parking area ahead. D. Steep downgrade ahead. D. Steep downgrade ahead. This sign warns of the presence of a hill ahead. You are stopped in a line of vehicles waiting at a stop sign. If there is no cross traffic after the vehicles ahead have passed through the intersection, you: A. May proceed through the intersection without stopping again. B. Must stop again at the stop sign or stop line before proceeding. C. May slowly roll past the stop sign. D. May follow the vehicle directly ahead of you without stopping. B. Must stop again at the stop sign or stop line before proceeding. You must always bring your vehicle to a complete stop and yield to approaching traffic before proceeding past a stop sign. Don't feel pressured by surrounding traffic to avoid making a complete stop. To pass a slower moving vehicle on a two-lane, two-way road, you must A. Not cross the center line. B. Flash your lights at oncoming traffic. C. Use the shoulder. D. Use the lane that belongs to oncoming traffic. D. Use the lane that belongs to oncoming traffic. Passing on a two-lane, two-way road requires good judgment because you must use the lane belonging to oncoming traffic to complete your pass. Only pass if you may safely and legally do so. To drive safely at night, you should A. Increase your following distance. B. Not drive if you are tired. C. Make sure your headlights are working properly. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. At night, visibility is reduced. Take steps to make driving in the dark more safe for you and the other drivers on the road. You come to an intersection that is blocked by other traffic. You should A. Go slowly until the traffic ahead moves. B. Get as close as possible to the car in front of you. C. Stay out of the intersection until you can pass through. D. Sound your horn to make the cars move up. C. Stay out of the intersection until you can pass through. You cannot enter an intersection if traffic is backed up on the other side and you cannot get completely through the intersection. Wait until traffic ahead clears so you do not block the intersection. Alcohol causes A. Loss of concentration. B. Poor coordination. C. Slower judgment. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. Consuming even a small amount of alcohol will impair your vision, judgment, concentration, and coordination. This sign means A. Curves ahead. B. Divided highway starts. C. Divided highway ends. D. Bumps in the road. C. Divided highway ends. This sign warns drivers that the divided highway ends ahead. This sign means A. Pedestrians ahead. B. End of construction zone. C. School crossing ahead. D. Flagger ahead. D. Flagger ahead. This sign indicates that there is a flagger ahead controlling traffic in a construction area. This sign indicates that A. There is a steep hill ahead. B. No trucks are allowed on an upcoming hill. C. A logging road is ahead. D. There are trucks on an upcoming hill. A. There is a steep hill ahead. This sign warns that there is a steep hill or downgrade ahead. This sign means A. Trucks are permitted on an upcoming narrow bridge. B. The bridge ahead is open to one-way traffic only. C. The bridge ahead is wide enough for only one car at a time. D. The bridge ahead may be too narrow to meet or pass a truck. D. The bridge ahead may be too narrow to meet or pass a truck. Warning signs are used to warn drivers about upcoming hazardous conditions and are usually yellow with black markings. This sign warns drivers that an upcoming bridge may be too narrow to meet or pass a truck and that they should be careful. When you approach a railroad crossing without flashing warning signals or crossing gates, you should A. Cross the tracks immediately and as quickly as possible. B. Always stop before crossing the tracks. C. Prepare to yield to any train at the crossing. D. Speed up to beat any oncoming train. C. Prepare to yield to any train at the crossing. Always be prepared to yield to any oncoming trains before crossing railroad tracks, particularly if there are no lights or gates controlling the crossing. Never start to cross the tracks until there is room for your entire vehicle on the other side of the tracks. Due to the risk of a vehicle stalling, it is not wise to shift gears when crossing railroad tracks. On slippery roads, you should A. Slow down. B. Drive more quickly. C. Drive the speed limit, with caution. D. Not drive more quickly than 20 miles per hour. A. Slow down. You should slow down at the first sign of rain, snow, or sleet, all of which can create slippery road conditions. When conditions on the road are less than ideal, safety may require that you drive more slowly than the posted speed limit. This sign means A. Keep right. B. Low shoulder. C. No parking at any time. D. Lane ends. A. Keep right. Regulation signs regulate traffic speed and movement, displaying rules which drivers must obey. This regulation sign indicates that drivers should keep right to avoid an upcoming potential driving hazard.